Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
And boys, for a while, I was worried we were going to go the entire time in between podcasts without a win. But the Orioles, they came through. They won a game. They won 2 games.
I know.
I mean, it's really good. Our schedule got delayed, so we gave the Orioles a few more games here to get a win. We were going to record a few days ago when we were in the middle of the losing streak, but that was not possible. So
some things happened.
Yeah.
Right. And we're coming back with the resurgence of Keegan Aiken.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a late season, applying for his chance at Rookie of the Year, maybe. I mean, there's an outside chance there. If we go just based on like August 27th through the end of the year, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, maybe if he threw like a perfect game every outing from now to the end of the season.
We could do the math on that.
Maybe he could get his ERA under 5.
That's what I was going to say. If we do the math, it probably would still be a pretty ugly ERA. But he was good for one night, and that was really fun. And the Orioles, they ended the streak in interesting fashion, beating Shohei Ohtani. I mean, they didn't really beat Shohei Ohtani. Like he left the game with a lead, but they won the game that Shohei Ohtani pitched in. So that's cool.
We were the only team this entire year to homer off of Shohei Ohtani 3 times in one start.
Incredible.
The one thing I will say about that game, like, okay, good for us.
Here we
could
go.
Celebrate. I mean, we were talking about it. Like, Shohei was off that night, and I was watching him, and I was very excited to see Shohei Ohtani pitch, of course, right? And I was there were glimmers of his greatness, but there were some. I was a little disappointed. I wanted to see like classic Shohei Ohtani, but I'm glad we won the game and snapped our streak. So that's the other half of it.
Yeah, we were texting. It was very humid that night. Who knows if that had an impact on Shohei. He also struck out 3 times, I think, which he strikes out a lot anyway, but it was against Chris Ellis twice, which was interesting.
Astounding.
Yeah.
Just like every pitch, every other pitch, he was like wiping all the sweat off his forehead. And, I think the humidity was definitely getting it to him. And his breaking stuff was just not working at all. Like especially early in the game, like all the breaking stuff ended up like above the strike zone.
Right. But I mean, yeah, Shohei had an off night, but we took advantage. The Orioles took advantage and then beat up the Angels bullpen because the Angels bullpen is terrible. And that's what you do to terrible. Yeah. And the Orioles offense, of all the bad things you can say about the Orioles offense is competent, I think, in general.
They didn't look competent during the losing streak, but overall they're competent. Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess, let's kind of like look back at the losing streak though a little bit. Like now that we're kind of separated from it a little bit, was it as bad as it felt the whole time? Or do you have any like sort of reaction to the losing streak in general? Jesse saying yes.
No, it was as bad as it felt, I think. I mean, we lost 19 in a row. I mean, 19 in a row is very, very difficult to do. Like, just the fact that one of those nights you don't get a really good starter, or you get an opponent that their starting pitcher has a disaster of a night, and they just team will give you some errors. So many things can happen in baseball that can provide an opportunity for a win. And the fact that never happened at all, that's just, I mean, it's terrible. But no, I mean, I think the losing streak felt really bad. I think we played really bad. And it was just, of course the pitching was bad, but the offense just produced nothing like during the time we were losing all those games. So
it's funny you cue in on that, because to me, yes, the offense wasn't that incredible, obviously, but we had, I just saw this Fangraphs blog on it. They said we had a 94 weighted runs created plus. That is always the hardest thing to say. Weighted runs created plus.
It's tough.
But it was 94, which was 19th out of 30 teams. That's not that bad. Our pitching, on the other hand, during this streak, the average start during that streak there were more runs allowed than innings pitched. We averaged 4.53 runs allowed per start and 4.1 runs or innings per start. Just like unimaginably bad. The entire team's ERA was 8.09. Our whip was over 1.8. We were giving up 11 hits per 9, walking 4 per 9. We gave up 40 home runs. Just like unimaginably bad. It's hard to really comprehend just how bad that truly is.
The other thing I'll say about it is, Tyler a while ago was talking on the podcast about how the Orioles were just not competitive and how we were getting blown out. And that definitely appeared like throughout the losing streak. We lost 16-2 to Boston, 9-2 to the Rays, 10-0 to the Rays, 7-2 to the Rays. So we had 14-8. We lost to the Angels. So throughout the losing streak, we definitely got blown out our fair share of games. Yeah, we lost 13-1 to the Yankees and 12-3 to the Rays it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I was looking at like what the schedule was during the losing streak, and the Orioles did play a bunch of like pretty good teams though. Like it started in New York. They had 3 games against the Rays. They did get swept by the Tigers, who are like not a good team, but they've been better in the second half. The Red Sox have been in first place most of the year. The Rays again for 4 games, and then the Red Hot Braves. Like it was a tough schedule combined with the Orioles being incompetent, especially on the pitching side of things. So just sort of like a combination of factors that made for a 19-game losing streak. I don't think the Orioles are as bad as their losing streak would indicate they are, but they're certainly not a good team. And it provided like a lot of fodder for media outlets to kind of like continue to bash the team, which was predictable yet annoying repeatedly every single day, especially from the Athletic. For whatever reason, the Athletic has been like pounding the Orioles for the last month or so. Right. But I'm glad it's over. Or
me too.
At least the losing is over. The pounding of the Orioles is not quite over.
Well, and the losing streak is over, but the losing is not over.
Correct. Yeah. They did lose again on Friday night, and that was unfortunate. But anyway, do you guys have anything else to say about the losing streak before we kind of move on?
Not about the losing streak, but we're recording this, and DJ Stewart just like ran into the wall trying to catch a foul ball, and he came nowhere close to it naturally. And
DJ Stewart is starting to get like a lot of ire on Twitter. Like he is the main target for a lot of like, why is that guy in the lineup every night? And I know he hits home runs, but the guy cannot field. Like we were complaining about Mountcastle in the field. Stewart might be worse.
Defensively, he's atrocious, and it's not just that he doesn't get to the ball, which so much of the time he doesn't get to the ball. But there's so many times he like barely overruns it and like lets it drop, and like he just looks so clumsy and uncoordinated out there that it would naturally make a fan watching him kind of say to themselves, how is this like a major league athlete out here playing this position right now?
Yeah. It also kind of makes you wonder, like, Mountcastle got yanked from the position. He just is not an outfielder anymore. And with DJ Stewart, that's just not the case. They've just kept running him out there. And, I get that like Mountcastle started as an infielder and all this stuff, but it wouldn't be that hard to teach DJ Stewart first base. But
it doesn't really solve the problem though, because we have Mountcastle, Mancini.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's clogged up.
Stewart.
He's a liability. It's clogged up at first. Don't get me wrong, but he's a liability out there, and they keep throwing him out there.
Well, I think they want their bats.
Right.
They want all 3 of them in the lineup. So how else do you do it?
Oh, that's fair.
And I mean, that could, while Mancini, I think, is on the block anyway this offseason, it might make it even more easy to be like, all right, let's trade Trey and make DJ like the DH. Although I don't think that's a great idea either, because I don't think DJ's like that good of a hitter that he deserves to be a DH every day. So I'm not sure. I guess they're just hoping that the offense can be good enough and the defense can be passable that it makes him like a worthwhile player. But that hasn't really been the case this year because he hasn't hit home runs at the rate he was last year, which, not that we expected him to, but it's been a bit of a disaster. All right, well, let's talk some good news because there was good news. And MLB Pipeline has updated their farm system rankings and top 100. And all of that has added up to the Orioles now being the number 1 ranked farm system, according to MLB Pipeline. Some of the highlights here, the Orioles have now not only the number 1 player in number 1 prospect in baseball, Adley Rutschman, but they also have the number 1 pitcher in baseball, according to Pipeline, Grayson Rodriguez at number 8 overall. Baseball America had previously anointed Rodriguez as the top pitching prospect in baseball. Also in the top 100 are DL Hall at number 78, Gunnar Henderson at number 80, and new draft pick Colton Cowser at 83. The Orioles have jumped up from being ranked 5th in the preseason rank by MLB Pipeline up to the number 1 spot. And I mean, this is good. This is kind of what we were all hoping with for Mike Elias. So Eli, is this like mission accomplished, or what do you think?
I'll call it a submission. There are stepping stones on the way to the large mission, and we have made it to one of those stepping stones. No, I mean, it's pretty tough to argue with what Elias has done. We've infused a lot of talent into the system. We've continued to refine some of the talent that was already here, like Rodriguez. And I think hopefully next year we'll get to see some of the fruits of that labor. I think that seeing Cowser on the list is pretty exciting. Seeing Gunnar Henderson starting to make that jump is also super exciting. And, he's still just 20 years old. So there's probably a lot of room to move upward on that list from the 83 or whatever that he's at now. I think, I think it's just good news. I think it's good to see, and it restores a little bit of faith in the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we've all thought about with Elias when he came in, was he's going to, improve the minor league system and kind of get the Orioles going in the right direction. Jesse, now that we're kind of at the number 1 spot now, Eli kind of hinted at it, that we're going to start to see some of the fruits of that labor next year. Does your attention maybe turn after this offseason from building the farm system to building a competitive major league team based on this farm system?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I think the priority, of course, is going to be the pitching for the Orioles this offseason, but I think they're going to try to patch up some holes basically around these guys who they're expecting to be up within the next couple of years. So I feel like there will be some major league free agent signings coming up at some key and valuable positions that won't be immediately addressed by the farm system.
You think that happens this year?
I think there are going to be a couple light signings, like 1-year deal signings, like okay. Which kind of always happen. We signed Franco, we signed but I would say probably like the next off season, I think you're going to maybe find like a 2 or a 3-year deal or something like that with I don't know, maybe signing an outfielder or something along those lines.
Yeah, I do kind of think that this offseason they need to take addressing the pitching a little more seriously, because I think that you can make the argument that how bad the pitching has been this year has been detrimental to the development of some of the guys that you would hope to be long-term pieces around here. I mean, yanking Alex Wells up and down, Dean Kramer, I think they thought was going to be in the big leagues this year, and that just has been a bit of an issue. And I think they made the decision later in the year to just kind of keep him down. And I think that probably was the right decision for his development. But it's been a little bit of a fiasco there. So I would like to see them go get, I think you said Martin Perez. Did you mention him? I think that could be a good signing. I think Zach Davies, maybe, like I could see you giving a Zach Davies like a 2-year, $16 million or something like that, because he'll probably be a number 5, and that's perfectly fine. You need a guy that's going to give you like 150 innings with like a 4.5 ERA or something, like you need something in the rotation that is like big league quality. And as good as Grayson Rodriguez might be when he comes up, you need other pieces in the rotation to kind of make it feel like a big league roster. So I'm with Jesse that I think the Orioles will wade into the free agent waters a little deeper this offseason. And I don't think it's totally ridiculous to expect them to be involved with Carlos Correa to some degree. Like, I know that's like going to be a huge contract, but he's young. He's only 27, I think, still. He's got that relationship with Mike Elias, whatever that's worth. And I could convince myself to give a 27-year-old a 9-year contract because he's going to be good. He's going to be good for the next like 4 or 5 years. After that, who knows? But, you know, you can bring up a Gunnar Henderson, a Jordan Westberg, and put them at second base or third base or whatever, and make it make sense to me. So I'm not sure I'm convinced the Orioles will sign Carlos Correa, but I would not be shocked to see their name attached to him during the offseason.
I guess my thing with that is I'm definitely not opposed to it. Of course, I would love Carlos Correa. I just feel like if Elias is going to make a big splash signing like that, I feel like, and granted, you know, in a 9-year span, the Orioles are not going to be good all of those 9 years. So if it happens to be the first year that the Orioles are not good when we have that player, fine, you know, have it be that way. But I just feel like he would probably make a big move like that further down the timeline than this offseason. But maybe it is a particular situation because of Elias's relationship with him. Maybe Correa is sort of an exception in this case, and the Orioles do try to go after him.
I mean, one thing I'll say about him too is that he gets hurt a lot. And quite frankly, you know, he has yet to really put together a full season. And for that reason, you might be able to drive down his price a little bit. And, you know, with Lindor being off the market, with Javi Baez kind of sucking, with Trevor Story kind of sucking this year, I think the market for shortstops is not going to be as, you know, crazy competitive, all out bidding war as most people expected it to be this year. So it could be a little bit more competitively priced if the Orioles are looking to do some shopping.
Yeah. Well, and the free agent prices, I think, always like at this time of year are higher than they end up being. You know, for a while we thought Manny Machado was going to get like insane numbers, and he still got a big number, but it was like $100 million less than I think what a lot of people were thinking for a long time. And I think something similar could happen with Correa there. I mean, he's been really good this year. He had an okay season last year in the abbreviated year. I just like as a talent, he's so far up there. But yeah, I mean, I think the Orioles should be involved with the big name shortstops. I'm not sure they're going to get one, but if you can get a big name shortstop that you're happy with, try to. And Correa, in my opinion, is the cream of the crop compared to Seager or Story or even Marcus Semien, if you can include him in there, even though he's played second base this year. But yeah, it's big money, and ownership would have to get involved, and that gets dicey too.
I was also going to say to the points you're both making is that Correa is a top 5 shortstop in baseball, and maybe the year after this upcoming year, there isn't one of his caliber available. So maybe this is the time. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We're going to talk off-season stuff. You know, probably in a month or so when the Orioles are, well, they've already been eliminated from the first wild card spot and the AL East crown. So, but the second wild card spot's in play. So there's something to play for down the stretch here. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's awesome that the Orioles are regarded so well. Pipeline thinks they're good. Baseball America thinks they're really good. However, and now we're going to transition. This is called a segue to another topic. Wow, that was smooth.
So professional.
As butter. Dan Connolly from The Athletic wrote an article. I think it was actually late last week, but we're a little delayed here, but we're going to talk about it now. He wrote an article for The Athletic called "The Dirty Little Secret of the Orioles Rebuild is the Pitching Cupboards Nearly Bare." In this article, which inflamed a lot of emotions on Orioles Twitter, Connolly talks to 2 unnamed scouts who basically go over every notable pitching name in the Orioles system. And they say that, yeah, they think Rodriguez is like a number 2 or a number 3 with a ceiling of an ace. And they think DL Hall is a major league rotation piece if he can stay healthy. And then basically picks apart most of the other names, says that a lot of them could be relievers. Some of them are back end pieces, but there's no obvious like 5-man rotation here. So Connolly comes to the conclusion that like, if the Orioles are going to get out of this, they need more pitching, and the pitching answers are not all in the system. I wrote an article on Camden Chat basically responding to it. Eli, I'm sure you have some thoughts. So I'll go to you first. Kind of what were your thoughts on the article, and maybe just, I don't know, what's your take on the Orioles pitching situation down in the minor leagues?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to give kind of a disappointing answer because we have, well, this past offseason, the thing that we kept saying is the Orioles don't really have that one guy, but they got a lot of depth. We've got a bunch of those guys who are just about ready to rock. And what I hate to say is I think we do have a number. I mean, I think we probably have more quadruple A pitchers in the Orioles system and guys that will top out at that like kind of triple A to MLB shuttle than just about anyone else in the majors. I think we have a super high floor of talent relative to most systems. I think that's partially a result of our like development pipeline. I think it's partially because the Orioles have been savvy about the way that they've, brought guys in. That being said, the argument that there is not an MLB rotation to be found in our minor league system, I think is a valid one. The point that Tyler had made to us, and he might have made it in his article too. I didn't actually read your article. It's nothing personal, but
that's okay. That's okay. Nobody does.
Yeah. But the big thing to me is that you don't have to build an MLB rotation entirely out of homegrown talent. That very, very seldom happens. And so if we can get Rodriguez and if we can get Hall to turn into a number 3 starter with a bunch of walks and kind of the high upside, even if he's a long rotation piece, and we can get 1 or 2 more guys to turn into our number 4 and 5 starters, going out and trading for or signing your 2 and your 3 is not that ridiculous. And actually, the next article we're going to talk about kind of alluded to that. So the expectation and kind of comparing this Orioles farm system to the bar of, are we going to have a 5-man rotation that is star-studded with 4 all-stars built out of this farm system? No, the answer is no. But do we have some interesting stuff? Yeah, I think we do. And I think we're about as well set up as any farm system in the bigs is, which, I mean, we were just given that number 1 ranking. I think that does allude to our depth just as much as it alludes to the high-level talent with Grayson and Adley.
Yeah, I mean, so to give people kind of a synopsis of my article at Camden Chat is...
Hold on, Tyler, stop real quick. Tyler just wrote in our outline Tyler's really, really good article and linked to it. So.
I mean, I think it's noteworthy and it's relevant to the conversation. So I included it in the article. But what I say in the article is kind of what you just said there, which is, the Orioles might not have that rotation in the minor leagues right now, but I don't think almost any system in the league has that in the minor leagues right now. And I cite in the article that Baseball America did a study, or they released a study, or I don't know, they did some research, and they put an article together in February where they looked at every team's minor league system from 1998 through 2012 and wanted to look at how many of those players turned into major leaguers at any one time, how many of those players turned into major league regulars, which they determined were players that spent at least 3 full seasons in the major leagues. And that could be broken up into 6 seasons where they play half a season each or whatever. And then how many players in the minor leagues turned into all-stars. And what they found were that at any one time, a major league organization will have 35 players on average that turn into major leaguers, 11 that turn into big league regulars, and 3 to 4 that turn into all-stars. So if you cut that in half for pitchers, because they included pitchers and hitters together, you'd have 5 or 6 big league regular pitchers and 2 all-star pitchers. So for me, that's kind of where the Orioles are at right now, which is that the Orioles they got a bunch of guys like Kyle Bradish, a Mike Baumann, a Dean Kramer, guys like that are probably going to be big league regulars. They might not be great, but they are going to be probably decent. And then I think you can argue that Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall could be all-stars. Maybe they won't be, but I think it's reasonable enough to project them as that right now. They're top 100 guys. Rodriguez is the best pitcher in minor league baseball, according to a lot of people. I think that's reasonable enough. So, like, yeah, the Orioles don't have a 5-man rotation in the minor leagues, but I don't think that that's necessarily that shocking or surprising. And I think we should be expecting Mike Elias to eventually make trades to get those 5 guys. If you look at the Astros in 2017, they did that with getting Justin Verlander. They signed Charlie Morton the offseason before. The Orioles get connected, or like compared to the 2016 Cubs a lot. They had, a big free agent signing in John Lester. They had a reclamation project in Jake Arrieta. They had Kyle Hendricks, who was largely homegrown, but was traded for as a minor leaguer. And they had Jason Hamill and somebody else at the back of the rotation. I forget who the name is, but it was another free agent guy. It was John Lackey. Oh, yeah. So I think that's kind of what the Orioles are going for. And they've clearly made it a strategy to draft hitters, not pitchers. And I think eventually these hitters we draft are not going to make it to the big leagues with the Orioles. I think we should be prepared for maybe if we get the first overall pick next year, maybe that guy makes it to the majors, but it's entirely possible that like the competitive balance pick, that'll be like 30th overall, that guy won't make it to the majors with the Orioles. He'll be traded for a pitcher in the future. So I disagree with Connolly's conclusion that it's bare, but I could be convinced that it's average rather than like superb. Whereas I think the hitting in the organization is like fantastic. Jesse, I don't know, what's your take on the whole situation?
Yeah, I basically have a consensus here with what I both think you're thinking. I think it is a deep farm system, but I think the top of the line prospects in terms of pitching prospects are not, we don't have the aces probably. I think that Connolly is hoping for, I guess, that a team or an organization would have. But I think what that ends up doing is I think it does put some pressure on Grayson Rodriguez, because I do think Grayson Rodriguez is kind of a must hit for the Orioles. I feel like, of course, anything can happen, but if Grayson Rodriguez does not turn out somewhat how we want him to, I feel like our trajectory is going to get really, really not dismantled, but infringed upon or something like that, right? I'm not finding the exact words, but I do think Grayson Rodriguez is kind of in a position where he really has to be the ace that we need him to be, the 1 or the 2 starter that we need him to be. And if he doesn't do that, then I'm very concerned. Yeah, I mean, I think we have, like Eli was saying, I think we have potential 4 and 5 starters in the rotation. I mean, the thing people also have to keep in mind is you really never know how these things are going to work out. We have John Means on our team right now, who was not at all projected to be the starting pitcher that he is right now. So hopefully, especially with the good organization built, the good coaching staff, the good pitching coaches that we have in the minors to develop these guys, hopefully, one of these, the Michael Ballman type prospects, are going to turn into an ace, or the DL Hall will not be a 4, but will be a 2 instead, or something like that. So hopefully with, 1 or 2 of these guys, we're going to kind of strike gold. And then, if you have Grayson Rodriguez being ace, if Means is still around, there's 1 starter. And then, whether it be DL Hall or Ballman or something along those lines, there's 3. And, let alone all the other pitching prospects we have down in the minor leagues who could play some role in the rotation, then you go sign a couple starting pitchers, right? So I mean, I think the other thing is, I don't know. I mean, I do feel like Grayson Rodriguez is very, very important, as I'm saying, but the game is not like it was 10 years ago where, you go out there with dominant starting pitching, right? The game is more reliant upon the bullpen now. So even when the Orioles made the playoffs in 2014, Wasn't Chris Tillman our number one starter at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
and he's not a Max Scherzer, he's not a Justin Verlander, and we were still a very successful team. We made it to the ALCS.
Beat the team with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander.
Right, exactly, right.
I will say though that I think, obviously the intent of this whole rebuild is to get a World Series, and I think World Series winning teams have 2 or 3 absolute studs in the rotation. I mean, you need somebody to go out there and take the ball, to win that wild card game, or to win like a game 6 where you're down 3-2 and you need to win game 6 to get to game 7. Like I think that the playoffs play up the importance of starting pitching. I think in the regular season, it's not quite as important, and a bullpen can get you through to an extent. But because everybody, has extra days off during the playoffs, to jump to the other team's stadium and whatever, then you're always up against the other team's number 1, number 2, number 3 guy. And so you've got to come with your number 1, number 2, number 3 guy. And I think because of that, I think starting pitching plays up in the playoffs. So
I hear what you're saying. I mean, of course, starting pitching is important. We're, kind of disagreeing over semantics here a little bit. But I mean, if you think about a lot of the major, I mean, when the Dodgers lost the World Series to the Astros, they lost it with their bullpen. The Rays went to the World Series last year having Blake Snell as, one of their, he was their ace, right? So, and he would go 5-2.
But hold on. Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow is like a really, really dominant.
No, they are, but what I'm saying is, like, Kevin Cash would not let Blake Snell go 6 innings, right? They would pull him. He would pull him consistently after 5 1/3, stuff like that, and rely upon the bullpen. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were, yes, it would be a Justin Verlander, and of course Verlander has pitched in the playoffs and gone 8 innings on a, but I feel like the game is much more reliant on the bullpen in the playoffs relative to 10 or 15 years ago. So I'm just saying,
I think if you look at any of the other 29 teams, though, they leave Blake Snell in to face the top of that Dodgers lineup again. Right. I think that was specific to the Rays.
Right. The Rays. But then also the Royals, when they made the World Series, right, they would have their starters go 5 innings, and then they'd put in Kelvin Herrera and
Greg Holland,
Greg
Wade
Holland,
Davis,
right?
and
exactly, right.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, the Orioles could have a formula similar to that. I'm not saying that's ideal, but I don't think, it's likely that the Orioles are going to have 3 aces now from what it looks like. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what you would expect. I don't think we should expect them to have 3 aces come up through the system, is my whole thing. Is like, right. Because if you go back and look at like MLB pipelines, and I think they've done this, where the teams that have like a really high ranking, like 2 or 3 years later, they start like tracking the wins in correlation to that. And it's a very strong correlation. And then typically after you're really good, your minor league system takes a dive. The Nationals, like a year or 2 after they won the World Series, I guess last year, had like the worst farm system in baseball. And I think like their low A team, the team in the same division as the Delmarva Shorebirds, people have said is like the worst team in all of minor league baseball. They get like blown out routinely. They're like the Orioles of the minor leagues, because that's just what happens is you clean out your minor league system to strengthen your major league team. And that's what happens. So like, it's awesome that we're really good right now in the minors. And I think we should hope that in 5 years, we're probably not very good in the minors, because that's what you do. You get guys up, and then you take guys that are in low A now and you trade them, you package them, and you take 2 or 3 of them and you trade them for some ace or some guy who's a 2 or a 3. That's just what you do.
I mean, of course, it is important to say the great organizations find the balancing act of doing both, right? Having the great minor league system in addition to the great major league team, the Rays, the Cardinals.
I mean, how many World Series championships do the Rays have, though? I don't consider the Rays some amazing organization. They've gotten to 2 World Series and they've lost 2 World Series because they just trade guys out. I do not enjoy the Rays model of building a baseball team. They're really good right now. And if they win the World Series, that's cool. but I do not want the Orioles to be the Rays at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they can. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing about them is, I think that the point you want to get to is where you develop a team the way the Rays do, but you sustain a team the way that, I mean, someone like the Dodgers does.
Right.
You know, like, I think the Dodgers are the perfect example of a team that both is happy to wield money. And like, don't get me wrong, I understand they've considerably more than just about anyone else besides the Yankees. But the Dodgers have a pretty dominant minor league system. You know, they've had Gavin Lux, they had Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray to trade for Scherzer and Turner. I mean, the Dodgers maintain a strong system. They've brought up Zach McKinstry and, you know, like all these ridiculous names this year. They've had Dustin May, Corey Seager came up through their system. And at the same time, you know, they spend the money to keep these guys around. They pay money to bring in a Mookie Betts. They do all this stuff to ensure that they stay good once they get there as well. And so, you know, I think that the Rays do everything they can to build a good team every year.
They just don't pay the money.
Yeah. Well, they do absolutely nothing to push themselves over the top. You know, they coast on being the team that has the most young talent. And that's what they do. And yeah, I mean, I think Blake Snell is the perfect example. Like, they signed him to a 3-year, $36 million deal. But then they said, oh, we can go get Luis Patino this year. If we trade away Snell, then that frees up $12 million for us. And like, everyone was blown away when the best team in the American League went out and got Nelson Cruz this year. You know, that's something that any American League team should want to do, but they were blown away when the Rays did it, because the Rays just don't spend money and don't like make those moves to turn a very, very good team into a World Series winner. So I think
and they did nothing for their rotation, and they don't have Tyler Glass now. And I mean, like, I don't know. I have issues with the way the Rays do stuff. Like, I think their front office is super smart, and I think it's not the front office's decision to not spend money. So I'm not going to blame like the GM or their front office folks on that. I think that's an ownership decision. But like, I want the Orioles to be like competitive routinely and have a decent farm system and pay guys. Like, the Dodgers have been really good. They've also have Clayton Kershaw, who's one of the best pitchers of all time. Like, it'd be cool to have that too. Like, that's super helpful as well. But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a lot of things to take away from the Rays, but I do not want Adley Rutschman to be traded away with 3 years of control remaining because we don't want to pay him an arbitration. Like, that is the part of the Rays that you got to kick before it ever becomes a part of the Orioles.
Yep, exactly. And the Rays might win the World Series this year. Maybe they become like a dynasty or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know if I see that happening.
Yeah, I just mentioned them because they're competitive every year, and they have and the reason they are competitive is because they're able to maintain a stacked farm system while being competitive at the major league level. They're not in a situation where they have to choose one or the other exactly, like the Orioles are choosing right now, the minor league system, and like many teams kind of have a good major league team at the expense of their minor league system. So I was just trying to say the good teams find that balancing act and are able to maintain.
No, that's totally fair.
Yeah, for sure. And that would be great. And, you know, we'll see, because there's also only so much room at the top, you know? So if the Orioles end up being one of those teams, there's going to be another team that can't be that way. You know, not every team can be a 95 win team, you know? So, we will see. But the other article we kind of wanted to talk about real quick was in the Baltimore Sun, where they kind of just recapped sort of all the different articles that have come out nationally about kind of kicking the Orioles while they're down. And it does include a quote from Keith Law, in which he kind of defends the Orioles. And he says, it'll turn around. It's just going to take a long time. I see this national narrative, and it's like, you all are just doing this because they've lost 19 in a row. You know, don't kick them when they're down. Take a rational look at the situation they inherited and the decisions they've made and what direction they're heading. I think their future is brighter than the national media is making it out to be. And they're all scapegoating the Orioles for a more systematic problem in baseball, which is that it doesn't really matter if you suck. Are any lies told in that paragraph of text, Eli?
Tyler, no lies were told.
Yeah, Jesse, what do you think?
No, I mean, I think it's accurate. Yeah, I mean, everything is basically the same as it was before the season, or I mean, roughly. Of course, we're having another terrible season, and maybe that came as some surprise to some people, but everything is roughly the same. The Orioles have been doing the same. The Orioles are doing the same thing now that they were doing before the season, so nothing's really changed. So yeah, I mean, the only yeah, I think as we've talked about, the future is bright for the Orioles. We're in a really tough division. I feel like that should have been mentioned, just kind of repeated to people in previous conversations we've had about the Orioles' future. And there are no guarantees, of course, especially given our very difficult decision with 3, probably 4 very good teams other than outside of ourselves. I said that wrong, but yeah, 3 are. I'm not trying to say we're good right now, but
Right.
yeah, there are 3 or 4. The Blue Jays, the Rays, the Red Sox, and the Yankees are all very good. Will be for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, we're not guaranteed the division for the next several years or anything like that, but we should be competitive, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Keith Law does a good job of distilling it all down right there, which is necessary because, yeah, that's kind of what I've seen people saying is that, if you want to critique the Orioles, that's fine, but then come from the angle of what you would have done differently in Mike Elias's shoes. What could you have done coming into the American League East with the farm system depleted, a lack of a presence in Latin America, and an albatross of a contract and Chris Davis on the books? Like, what were the alternative routes to take to get here?
And
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, you can finish.
Sorry. I was just gonna say the other thing about this is, as he says, this is like a systematic issue in baseball, right? The Major League Baseball is going in the direction of bad teams just tanking, and Major League Baseball should find a way to correct that so that teams are not encouraged and incentivized to do that, but they currently are. So the Orioles are just doing it harder and better and probably more aggressively than most of the other teams.
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing that I want to throw out here is, we did, like, I wasn't cheering on Buster Olney as he was bashing the Orioles. Don't get me wrong, but on this podcast, we said multiple things to the effect of, like, yeah, the front office does deserve some criticism because this is pathetic. We were saying that before the losing streak. We were saying that during the losing streak. The fact of the matter is, like, this Oriole team at the major league level right now could be, could be much better and, like, could be at just a more reasonable level of bad while still getting a top 5 pick. We've had that discussion many times on here. And so I just don't want this conversation to make it sound like any of us are of the position of, no, dude, it's totally okay. Go for 27 losses in a row next time. That's
Right.
not where we're at. But yeah, I mean, I think it's simultaneously true that the Orioles have been, I don't know, picked on to an extent, like, because, yeah, we were in the middle of this horrible losing streak, and it is a problem that extends much beyond ourselves. And, there have been teams that are in the middle of longer playoff droughts. There are teams that have, spent less on payrolls in the last 10 years by significant amounts. There are teams that suck in their own ways, and those ways are, like, various and just as profound as the ways that the Orioles suck. So that's the only thing that matters to me is, like, it's a larger problem in baseball. Tanking is a very viable way to build a contending team right now. The fact of the matter is, yeah, the Orioles got Grayson Rodriguez with the 11th pick. We got Adley with the number 1. We got Colton Cowser with number 5. If Kerstad gets healthy, we will have gotten him with number 2. And, and that's the reason we got that number 1 rating that they just talked about from MLB Pipeline of our farm system. So, yeah, right now, just being terrible is a viable way to get good. And you don't have to try very hard to be terrible. You don't have to spend money to be terrible. And so GMs and front offices love being terrible. Or I'm sorry, the owners love being terrible.
Yep.
So yeah, the problem is not the Orioles. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, systemic changes have to be made. They've talked this week about introducing a salary floor. I'm not sure if that totally does the job, because then you can just sign bad contracts to get to the salary floor and still tank. I don't know. But I do want to give a shout out to Joe Posnowski in The Athletic for just the worst take of the week, where he talked about the Orioles being bad, and also claims that the Royals, while also bad, are playing really hard, and has a comment that says, I really wish baseball would reward bad teams that play well rather than punishing them by dropping them in the draft. You're telling me the Baltimore Orioles, who are tanking like nobody's watching, deserve a higher pick than the Royals, who have kept plugging away and clawing and fighting, even though the season was lost months ago? Teams should have a chance to play their way out of mediocrity rather than lose their way out of mediocrity. Now, I mean, okay, sure, they can play their way out of mediocrity. That's fine. But to say like the Royals are like losing with style, so they should get a better pick.
Yeah.
The Royals are also really bad. They just also are in the worst division in baseball. Right. So they get to win more games. The Orioles have played the Royals head to head, and the Orioles took 2 out of 3 from the Royals. Then he quotes in here about the Royals have beaten the Astros in 3 out of 4 lately. The Orioles swept the Astros. Like, what does that even mean? It's like the most pointless.
You can handpick teams all you want. Yeah.
Just awesome that guy gets paid to write articles for The Athletic. So that's cool. But yeah, anyway, the losing sucks. I'm glad it's over. Yes, baseball should do something about the tanking, but like there's other teams tanking. The Pirates are tanking at the same time. The Diamondbacks, I don't know if they're tanking. They're just really bad, but like, it's not just the Orioles. It's a problem, as Law points out there. So just pick a new person to pick on.
And just to be clear, none of the players are tanking, right? So that's just an important observation too. We're not suggesting that the players are going out there and trying to lose.
Right. It would make no sense to do that. All right, let's talk some infield stuff. Some things have happened this week. Michael Franco has willingly or willful. What's the word I'm looking for? Finally, I don't know. Michael Franco has been DFA'd, and he has cleared waivers shockingly and been granted his release. Richie Martin's been optioned. Jahmai Jones has finally been recalled, along with Kelvin Gutierrez. Eli, you were saying, like, as we were going through the outline earlier, like, God, Franco was just so bad. Do you have any parting thoughts for Michael Franco?
I wish him the best, but I wished him gone for a long time too. So I'm glad he's gone. I'm excited to see what Jahmai Jones can do in particular. And that's all I got. Short and sweet.
Yeah, Jesse, I mean, you can kind of comment on any infield stuff you want. I think the Martin option is kind of interesting because he just wasn't doing very well, but I don't know. Any thoughts on the infield shakeup?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little short of an experiment with Richie Martin this year. Obviously, we had him for an entire year, which was rather long. But yeah, I mean, he hadn't been here that long, so it was weird that he had gotten basically called up at the expense of Jahmai Jones, only to shortly after be optioned. So that was a little strange, I'll say. But yeah, Jahmai Jones is up, and this is the guy that we've been waiting to see. He's gotten offensively off to a little bit of a rough start, but I'm not too worried about it just because these are his first games for the Orioles, so it's going to take a little bit for him to settle in. But defensively, he's made some nice plays, so that's been good to see too. So
that's encouraging because that's what we were told he was down there for, was to work on his defense, and it seemed to do the trick. So that's good.
Yeah.
It'll be good to see Jones play a little bit, and Mateo and Urias. I think the Orioles finally have found maybe what the best infield solution is for this season. So that'll at least be something to watch for the last month of the year. Other moves, Chris Ellis was claimed off waivers from the Rays. I think we already touched on Chris Ellis for a second. He pitched in that game that the Orioles broke the streak, tossed a couple innings. Eli, any expectations for Chris Ellis, or any thoughts on what you saw in that first game maybe? No? Okay.
No, Chris Ellis will not be on the team in 2022.
Wow. Okay.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, I don't know if he has any options or anything, so that always plays into it. But yeah, I mean,
You know
probably
that
not the solution.
you remember all the commercials for flex tape? It's like,
Yes,
they cut a hole in some
like a
bucket and it's
boat.
leaking
Yeah.
water everywhere, and this guy just slaps something on it. Chris Ellis is flex tape. He just gets slapped on to plug the hole, and hopefully something better will come along next year. And some quadruple A guy that we've been talking about will step up in spring training.
So are you saying flex tape is not a long-term solution for a hole in a bucket?
That is correct.
Oh,
Maybe,
wow.
yeah. It's more
We-
like Scotch tape
We might be getting sued.
than flex tape. Yeah. Well, maybe that's true.
I bought a thing of Flex Seal one time. Did not work. The
Really?
water came through anyway, so I co-signed that.
Well, you heard it here first. Come to the Warehouse Pod for all of your, your household needs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can throw
Let you know.
the chances of a Flex Seal sponsorship out the window at this point.
I guess so.
Jesse, any thoughts on Ellis at all? No.
No, it's just no. The thing is, it's just a continuation of the long line of moves that the Orioles have made that are completely uninspiring and to. I mean, I'm serious. To fix this rotation. I mean, we get this guy. He's one of these guys who, at this point, is not really stretched out to be a starting pitcher. He had to go 3 innings. I mean, it's just very he's not a guy with a high ceiling or somebody that we expect to really have any potential long-term impact. And it's a continuation of the frustrating moves that have and the revolving door that has been the starting rotation this year.
Yeah, I mean, I will say at this point in the year, it's tough to do anything other than waiver claims because the trade deadline's passed. There's no longer the non-waiver or the waiver trade deadline. So, like, this is pretty much all they can do. I did just check. He is 28 years old. He'll be 29 in September. He does have all 3 of his options left. So I could see him maybe sticking around and they let somebody go that doesn't have options. But yeah, I mean, probably not the long-term answer there. Jorge Lopez, this is kind of a big one, has been moved to the bullpen full time. Looks like that's going to happen for the rest of the year. And I think this is long overdue. Jesse, maybe I'll go to you first to talk about Lopez. What do you think about this in general? Obviously, it kind of creates a hole in the rotation to an extent, but I think maybe we'll get the chance to see the absolute best that Jorge Lopez has to offer. What do you think about this move of Lopez to the bullpen?
Yeah, well, we've definitely talked about this possibility for a long time. I think the Orioles were hesitant to do it just because they were so desperate for starting pitching, because he does, he's a very talented pitcher, has a lot of upside. So the Orioles were trying desperately to make it work in the rotation, but clearly I think most people paying attention were aware that you can maximize his potential by finding him a bullpen role. And I think that this is a good move long term, because yes, the starting rotation might take a hit. Maybe it would even be good to have him as a 6th starter. If we were trying to play the absolute best we were playing throughout the rest of the year, maybe it makes sense to keep Lopez as a 6th starter or something like that. But in terms of the long-term future and goals for the Orioles and for Lopez and for the organization, I think much more is going to be gained by starting him now to find out where he's going to fit into this bullpen. And I definitely think we can find him a spot.
Okay. Yeah. One thing I thought about earlier today was that he's actually first-time arbitration eligible this offseason. So Eli, if Lopez goes out and does a really nice job in the bullpen, maybe not, he's not like, a Craig Kimbrell out there, but he's like, a solid 3 ERA kind of bullpen pitcher. Given kind of his history, you think the Orioles offer him arbitration and kind of try to give him a whole year of I don't know, demonstrating what he can do in the bullpen next year?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't necessarily agree with Jess that, like, the best spot for him would be like a sixth man in the rotation or anything. I think like a straight bullpen role is really the way that I see him at this point. But he's got the electric fastball. I mean, and if he can come in, he can play that up a couple miles an hour. The 94, 95 goes from 97, 98, something like that. And he can keep working the good curveball he has. His changeup actually like showed plus a couple times this year. If he can work all that and do it and play it up in shorter stints, like Tyler's been saying since the beginning of time, that Jorge Lopez like just should not be facing lineups multiple times. So you get him and you put him in a position where he's got to face, 6 hitters in 2 innings. And I think, there's a very, very good chance he just rolls through that. And I think that if this month-long experiment goes well, I think he goes from a pretty clear non-tender candidate to, somebody we might keep around.
Yeah, and I don't think the raise would be that high. Maybe he'd get like $1 million next year. I don't think it's going to be crazy. Jess, you wanted to jump in there?
Well, I was just going to say, like, for me personally, I feel like Jorge Lopez would be a better starter than Chris Ellis. So that's what I guess I'm trying to say is I think that he is a better starting option than some of the pitchers we have there right now.
Okay. I thought just because you said 6-man, you were talking about like adding him in there along with the people we have. And like, as a starter, he just doesn't do anything to me. Like,
right. There's no long-term benefit to having him start, but I think that if the Orioles were trying to like win and do everything to win games, I think it could make sense to have him in the rotation still. But
get him like an extra day of rest or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not worth fighting about because the Orioles aren't trying to win.
Right.
Very true. Less positive news for a pitcher. Cesar Valdez has been DFA'd and cleared waivers, and he is with Norfolk now. So still in the organization, could come back. Sort of a sad day to see Cesar Valdez be DFA'd there, Eli, but kind of inevitable at this point.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. I don't know. It was super fun. Like, I had a great time with him. I hope he can figure something out. But yeah, I guess, once major league teams saw him for, a full season and they said, well, okay, all he's doing is throwing changeup. So fine, sure, that works great. And kind of, it was a gimmick and it was an effective one for a little while. But in the major leagues, all the best pitchers are constantly refining themselves, constantly evolving to a certain extent, and they're evaluating their own holes, their own weaknesses, and they're closing them up. And the fact of the matter is, Valdez was kind of a one-trick pony, and they cued in on it, and he started getting hit really hard all the time. So,
So my take on this. So first of all, just as I feel like it's a little harsh and you've said it in the past, so that's what I'm commenting on at this time, but calling it a gimmick, I don't know, it feels a little harsh to me. And it kind of seems like, you are kind of taking away some of the ability that he does have. He's not up there like lobbing the ball in like a 38 miles an hour, like some position player did, and just lobbing it with no skill, no talent. Like Cesar Valdez, when he was good, had the movement, kept the ball down in the zone, etc. So, I mean, so I'm just saying, I feel like whatever. I just have a negative reaction to that term. Anyways, I'm just going to keep moving along. I mean, I think the Orioles made the move knowing, I think in part, obviously, I don't think the Orioles, if they lost Cesar Valdez, I don't think they would be devastated. But I think they made the move knowing that he would be able to stay in the organization. He accepted the AAA assignment. He's not going to be on the team for the rest of the year, but hopefully maybe the Orioles give him an off season. Maybe he can go figure something out, go come up with a new idea and find some way to be effective. So I know the Orioles are not banking on this, but I think it's a possibility, and who knows? So he had to, in order to be successful at all, he had to be innovative and creative and figure something out. So hopefully he can do it once more. But yeah, it's kind of sad, and it's the harsh part of baseball, because I feel like all the fans liked him a lot, and he did his thing. I mean, for the short time period that he did. So
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a longer time period where he was not doing his thing,
yes.
and the fans will remember that not so fondly.
Yeah.
Well, there was last season too, though.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, what I will say is his xFIP is only 3.68 this year, so it's actually not too bad compared to his 5.76 ERA. And he had some fly ball home run, like bad luck. He allowed 20.5% of his home runs fly balls went for home runs, whereas last year he didn't allow any home runs. So that was kind of sort of the change this year. Yeah, I mean, maybe he figures it out. He's 36 years old. I'm not expecting this to be him to be an integral part of the next good Orioles bullpen, but good luck, Cesar. Hopefully you figure things out in Norfolk. All elsewhere in the bullpen, Connor Green, Eli's guy, is back and has already pitched one time and been pretty good. Clearly the Orioles see something in him to get him back for the second time this year. He spent, I guess, 2 weeks with the Dodgers and he's back with the O's. I mean, Eli, what does this say to you about the Orioles claiming him again?
I think it was Dan Connolly or one of the Orioles beat writers who said it, but it says to me that Connor Green is racking up some frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, that's fair.
But no, in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, I think the Orioles like what he has. It's clear that he's just got an electric fastball and has no idea where it's going. So they're doing what they can to keep him around in the hopes that he will figure it out. And I'm sure they've been trying to refine his mechanics, make him a little more repeatable. And I'm sure they're refining his secondary stuff as well. And I think the Orioles are going to keep him on the major league roster in hopes that this offseason he's theirs and exclusively theirs, and they'll have some more time to work with him. Yeah, I the fact that we brought him back, shows a high level of interest in the part of the Orioles, I think. And I think it raises some questions about what he'll come out with in spring training, in a good way. Like it has me intrigued. I had been a big fan when I saw him in spring training, and then I saw him in the majors, and I was kind of like, and now those questions are coming back in a good way. So I'm curious to see what he's got.
Yeah, I mean, and the Dodgers were interested enough to keep him on their 40-man for a while. Jesse, you wanted to add to that?
Well, I was just gonna say Tyler joked around about how the Dodgers must have fixed him, but before the podcast. But no, I was just gonna make the exact point that you made about how the Dodgers were interested in him and they kept him on the 40-man, and the Dodgers are great. So if he's good enough for the Dodgers 40-man for 2 weeks, I feel like he's good enough for the Orioles.
I mean, I will say the Dodgers have had a ton of injuries on their pitching staff. So that could have been part of it, but yeah, I mean, we'll go with that for sure. All right, last note we want to talk about is rosters are expanding in September, obviously, which is only a couple of days away, depending on when you're listening to this. Rules are a little bit different now than they were a couple of years ago. They no longer expand to 40, but they expand to 28, which is 2 extra players. So the Orioles are going to get 2 extra guys. It might not be super exciting. I don't think Adley Rutschman's going to be coming up. Eli, do you have your eyes on anybody in particular to be called up in September?
I think I'm going to talk now. I think that I think the 2 that are going to come up are Bauman and Bannon. I think they just seem the right combination of age. Bannon's been getting really hot. Bauman has been healthy for a little while, and he started throwing a little bit better. So I think they make sense. One that just kind of piques my interest, he's been kind of popular. I think Steve Molesky wrote an article about him, is this dude Felix Bautista. He started the year in high A, and he's allowing 2 point something hits per 9. He just strikes out a ton of people. He's 6'8", 270 pounds, just enormous dude, throwing extremely hard. And I don't know, it sounds pretty fun to add that to the bullpen. So a small part of me hopes that happens. But that being said, I think it'll be Bannon and Bauman.
Okay. Jesse, anything similar there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as convinced by Bannon, just because I, to the extent that this is like based on merit and stuff, I don't know if a 2-week span, should get you that promotion. I know it's not a full promotion, it's a call-up promotion, but so I don't know about that, but I definitely think I'm gonna be very, very upset if Ballman is not on this team in September.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, because Ballman's had some injury stuff this year. He got roughed up a little bit, I think, the last time he pitched, or maybe it was 2 times ago. Let me look at some of his numbers here recently. But I mean, Ballman's been my guy for a while.
Right. Yeah. To me, I think like if Ballman doesn't make it up, yes, this would be partially due to injuries, but it would feel like completely just a lost year. I think all of us were expecting him to kind of be popping in and making spot starts for the Orioles come like, I don't know, May or so. I thought that we all kind of envisioned him as somebody who would be in the rotation, so to speak, of Aiken, Kramer, Wells, Lothar, all those guys. We had him as part of that group. And so even if it's purely just because the injuries held him back and he's taken a while to get his form and everything, it'd just be kind of disappointing if this were a completely lost year in that sense and he doesn't make his debut this year.
Yeah. So I'm looking at his game logs now. His last start actually was on the 24th, where he went 5 shutout innings, struck out 5 and walked 3. So that was actually pretty darn good. And his batting average against in AAA this year looks like it's 186, if I'm looking at the right number. So that's pretty good. Sure. Yeah, I'll go with Ballman getting called up. I could also see, because what's going on right now is like Hunter Harvey, his like rehab keeps getting kicked back. And I could see it being like Hunter Harvey is just the call up, which is not necessarily a call up, but just like the guy from the pitching side, which not super sexy, but I could see that being the move. And then, yeah, I mean, as far as on the infielder or like the hitter side, I think Bannon does make the most sense. I think it's either Bannon or McKenna, which again, McKenna, not super sexy. We've seen him, I mean, he's very sexy. He's a hot guy. I'm not going to say that, but as far as like adding to the roster, not super interesting. The only other element of it could be like starting service time, where with McKenna, you wouldn't be doing that. Whereas with Bannon, you would be, although is Ryland Bannon really the kind of prospect we care about starting service time with? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But just to be different, I'll say that it's very boring and ends up being Hunter Harvey and Ryan McKenna that come up.
Yeah, that is just unbelievably boring.
That's a nightmare scenario.
It's so boring, yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. But
what a demoralizing way to end the year.
It could be different. We'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to complain about it next week if that happens.
Yeah, right.
All right, so let's, before we get out of here, do the Oriole of the week. Last week's Oriole was Ryan Flaherty. This week, if you're not familiar, what we do is we give you 3 facts about a current or former Oriole, and then you all interact with us on social media to tell us who you think it is, and we give you a shout out. Again, Brady came through with Ryan Flaherty almost immediately, almost only hours after I posted the episode. We got a DM from Brady saying that it was Ryan Flaherty. So Brady, thank you for your continued listenership. We appreciate it. So here are the 3 facts about this week's player. The first fact is that they threw a no-hitter against the Atlanta Braves at Turner Field on April 17th, 2010.
Jesse is just asleep at the wheel.
Sorry.
He was texting.
My
That's
bad.
just unbelievable. It's like we're
All right,
recording
hold on.
a podcast.
Wait.
No,
Sorry.
you don't even know what's happening. I'm reading the second fact.
Can you
now,
just
and
no?
then you
I
have
know
to tell
what
the
it
third
is.
fact. No, you have to tell the third fact about me. That's what's happening. We're leaving it in.
Why?
Because the fans deserve to know who they're dealing with here. If they want to subscribe to the Warehouse Pod, they have to love us and every facet of us.
Exactly.
He's rolling his eyes. All right,
it's a cult.
I'm reading the second fact. Yeah, right. I'm reading the second fact. All right, he had the lowest ERA in MLB history through 11 starts in that same 2010 season. His ERA was 0.78. Admittedly, we are unsure if that record still holds. particularly with what Jacob deGrom was doing this year.
That's true.
But yeah, lowest ERA in MLB history through 11 starts with 0.78.
And this is more personal to Eli, but he also has a degree from Florida Tech, where Eli went to school.
Yeah, well, Eli was supposed to be the one reading that, so.
Yeah, but Jesse messed up the order, and then his mic was muted. It was a whole thing.
Ruined everything.
But yeah, that is it for the show this week.
Tyler, are you even going to post this episode after what Jesse just did?
Oh, I'm posting it.
Are we just scrapping the whole thing?
No, we can't do that. We keep errors in sometimes.
We should just quit podcasting. That's what we should really do.
I know. We're the first person to ever accidentally talk on mute. It's never happened before. All right. So what are we going to talk about next week? Who are the Orioles playing? They've got the Rays right now. Then what? They've got, is it the Yankees? What do we got going on here? Got to tell the people what the Orioles are doing.
Sounds like the beginning of a new losing streak.
Well, we're winning right now as we record. So chill.
We are. That's good.
3-1.
It's huge. It's huge. John Means comes through again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't even say that. It's John Means Day.
Happy John's Means.
Yeah. To quote all of Orioles Twitter, Happy John Means Day to those who observe.
It's been not as celebratory the second half of the year, but was pretty good today. So the Orioles wrap up this series with the Rays. Then they head to Toronto. They're going to be back in Canada for the first time in 2 years for a 3-game set there. And then they go to the Bronx for 3. And then we should have another episode out for you after or sometime around the end of that series. So that's it.
The Blue Jays are struggling, so we could get something there.
Absolutely. And the Yankees lost today after winning like 13 in a row. So they're slumping all of a sudden.
How many wins you guys feeling?
Oh, I mean, including tonight?
No, not including tonight.
Oh, so just over the next 5.
I'll say 1.
One more against the Rays on the 29th.
Okay.
And then,
and then
3.
So 6 or 7 games.
7 games total.
I'll say 1.
1 win. Wow.
Yeah.
I'll say 2. I think they get one in Toronto and 1 in New York.
You sounded like, oh my gosh, what a horrifying prediction. You're predicting the Orioles only win 1 game. You're so pessimistic about the Orioles. Okay, I'm gonna say 2 games.
I did twice as many as you. That's a lot.
Yeah,
100% more.
I think I'm also gonna say 2.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I think we're losing tomorrow with the Rays, and I think we get 1 in each series.
Okay, it's reasonable. I like that pick, Eli. It's a very smart pick.
Thanks, Tyler.
I will say, if we win 2, I feel like we're going to win 2 against Toronto, not 1 against the Yankees.
Right.
Why? The Orioles own Yankee Stadium.
Jesse, you know what, Jesse? You don't get to not pick 2 and then critique my 2 pick.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
You sit over there with the rest of the ones, and we're gonna keep rolling high with us too.
You're such a biased New Yorker now. You think the Yankees can't lose all of a sudden? Is that what you think?
What?
That's exactly what I think.
He's been going undercover. He infiltrated Orioles Twitter and Orioles podcasting, and
I just want to
end this whole time.
Yeah, I do just want to say, like, when I moved to New York, everyone said, "Oh, you're gonna be a Yankee fan now," and never ever will I ever be a Yankee fan, no matter how long I live here. And I will always be an Oriole fan. So
we appreciate it.
Definitely. I'm not.
That's exactly what an undercover Yankee fan would.
Right. I was gonna say that's a lot less likely than the story you just told. I'm sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you want to support a real Orioles podcast, what you can do is you can go on Apple Podcasts and rate us 5 stars. That would be awesome. If you don't do that, you can at least subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. That could be Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Warehouse Pod. I was ready to get my stuff. You can follow me. I guess I'll just give mine at _Ty Young on Twitter and Instagram. And Eli, what about you?
I'm on Twitter at Elijah Ginsburg.
And Jesse? as he pushes the microphone to his eyeball for reasons we aren't aware of.
We are blowing Jesse up.
You can find me at Juggernaut 8678 JUGGERNAUT 8678 on Instagram and Twitter.
Nice. Thank you very much. And yeah, I mean, I think, the other thing is go to substack.com, thewarehousepod.substack.com, and you can join our mailing list and you'll get the email. You'll get the podcast rather sent right to your email inbox rather than to your podcast platform. If you want to do things that way, check it out. But all right, folks, that is all we've got for today. Until next time, this has been the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.